Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines. A collapse coming that will change everything. We got that. Gasparino, John Deaton, so much more. Crypto giant. We got another one in trouble this morning, ladies and gentlemen. And is the XRP equal to FedCoin? We're going to talk about it, and so are other people. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter for exclusive content. Right now, $852 billion market cap for cryptocurrency. We're off by 0.7%. Bitcoin, 16,800 plus. Ethereum, 1,200 plus right now. Tether market cap, 66.2 billion, they say. XRP is 33 cents this morning. We're off by 4.6% on the 7-day. Good morning. If you haven't done it, get your Ledger Stacks, created by the inventor of the iPod, for goodness sakes. Get the best deal possible by clicking the link underneath of this video. Get your pre-order. It's amazing. Look how user-friendly this thing looks. I cannot wait to get mine. I can tell you that. Make sure you do it. Don't mess around. I hate for them to put up the "we ain't got any more" sign, right? Right here, we see this. If you're in crypto, boy, I tell you, it's not funny, but it is a little bit. Because, I mean, this is exactly how I feel. I've even seen it at times. If I sell, things go up 8,000 gazillion percent. If I hold, everything just capitulates and kind of goes sideways, right? It stagnates. And then if I buy, things usually go down 99%. It's unbelievable. Whew. That's probably one of the most accurate charts and illustrations of the market that I've ever seen in my life. Shout out to Whale Chart for that one. But here's something not so funny. Let's bring it back to getting real. The first real collapse experience in crypto was back when Mt. Gox went under. And as you know, there's been a lot of Bitcoin from that exchange when it went under that was locked up, and the original holders of it had been waiting this entire time to get it back. Well, it says right here that the registration deadline pushes from January 10th to now March 10th, before the distribution deadline pushed back from July 31st to September. So this is something to keep watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I feel bad for anybody that has their stuff locked up, but it is a lot of Bitcoin. You have to wonder what the impact may or may not be once that release of that Bitcoin happens. And the people that have been waiting so long to get their Bitcoin, might they take profits, and would that put a big downward pressure on the market itself and Bitcoin? We'll see. But this is right here pretty massive. Not pretty massive. This is absolutely massive. Scoop. Genesis parent company Digital Currency Group just shut down its $3.5 billion wealth management division as the crypto contagion continues. You know, we've been reporting about things like this coming, and it is absolutely massive. And I tell you what, I feel like, you know, this, as many companies as DCG, Barry Silbert's company, is involved in this crypto space, you have to wonder now, how systemic is this about to get on top of FTX, which I feel like we haven't felt the full fallout from that as well. Don't forget, Barry Silbert also bought Silvergate Bank, which a lot of things went on for FTX and the money through that world going through, and I don't want to use the word funneling, but the money was going through Silvergate Bank. Now, it doesn't mean Silvergate was aware of what FTX was doing. I'm not suggesting anything like it. But it does say, watch out for Silvergate Bank, watch out for whatever is going to come here for Digital Currency Group, and pay attention to more fallout for FTX. This isn't over. And we still are waiting to see when and if Gary Gensler, and I do believe that John Deaton's right, will sue some U.S. exchanges. John Deaton says here in remarks to the U.S. SEC, says that today they charged Randy Robertson, a former portfolio manager at BlackRock Advisors LLC, for failing to disclose a conflict of interest when the fund he managed invested millions of dollars in a film company with which he had a relationship. Now, somebody tell me how they've got the clarity to see that at the SEC, but we don't see them calling William Hinman to carpet over what appears to be exactly the same thing. The man received $15 million from the law firm that benefited from the free pass, which represented Ethereum. I mean, goodness gracious. Turn whatever high-powered perception you have, Gary Gensler, Goldman Gary, and turn that towards Ethereum and William Hinman, and let's get that straightened out. Because, you know, if you straighten that out with Ethereum, none of us actually have an argument. How about that one, right? Justice should be the same for everyone, right? Here's a nightmare crypto scenario from Charles Gasparino. Shout out to him, Eleanor Terrett, and everybody at Fox that keeps the coverage on the SEC versus Ripple and everything crypto. He says Ripple loses SEC case. Gary Gensler will target Ethereum for its sales, crippling the two best technologies in crypto. Most of these coins are backed by nothing. Bitcoin's tech is outdated. Ripple and Ethereum are real. Scary stuff. Well, here's what I have to say here. He proposes something that could take place, right? I mean, these are some of the possible outcomes that could take place. That's really all you have to say here. We'll have to see what happens. We are getting closer and closer and closer. Somewhere between, well, I mean, to give it to like Jim Filan has told all of us, he believes there'll be a ruling on everything at one time on or before March this year. Now, that doesn't mean that it'll actually have to happen that way. Some people have said it could go as deep as into May, right? Or a little later, but we'll see. We are on the final stretch of finding out what's going on in this case with Ripple and XRP, and it feels good to know that we're headed that way. And until we get there, we have some stuff to look at here. This was shared by XRP JJ, and he says, XRP community, what is up with this statement he found in a Ripple document about India? And now you take a look at this, and it does look quite troubling. Retail payment customers will never own, hold, or transact in XRP as a part of the on-demand liquidity product experience. Now, to clear things up, Bob comes out here, Bob Way, formerly of Ripple, patent designer as well for Ripple. And he says that means that customers, senders, and receivers will be dealing in rupees. The sent payments will be converted to XRP as a bridge currency after rupees leave the customer's hands. Same with receiving. The sender may start with British pound, which is then converted to XRP, then to rupees. He goes on to suggest in there that the language could easily be taken out of context. And I want to highlight my own viewpoint on this, is that the discussion in this is about on-demand liquidity, which is not a consumer-facing product within itself. And they have made that very clear at Ripple from day one, so I'm not confused about that either. I think one of the most important things about the ruling on the SEC versus Ripple case, will retail investors be able to continue to buy, hold, and sell the asset the same way that we were before the case began? Because the truth is, we can't get it now exactly the way we used to, as easily as we used to, and we only can get it on a handful of exchanges where it was on plus 100, plus 150. So we will see, and that's one of the things I'm very excited about the ruling, because however they rule on the asset, I certainly don't believe they're going to harm the full-scale intended use case of it. That's just my personal opinion, not financial advice. Now, with that being said, I need to play this clip for you. This is a Glenn Beck clip, and I'm playing it because it was sent to me. And I want to highlight here that what's important is not only what he's saying, but the fact that a regular he's not mainstream media, he has his own channel, obviously, but someone who is in the political realm covering politics in the geopolitical landscape is now having a mainstream discussion about the things that we cover every second of every day. And that is highly important to me. Take a listen here.
Coming that will change everything. They know once America and the Western world see what's going on, when people really understand, things are going to change. So it's a race. Do we wake up before they put us in a cage, a digital cage? That's really what's happening. So I don't know when, but they need us in a digital cage. And the best way to do it, And the last way to do it is a total meltdown of the financial system of the West. Because
I tell you,
that's when you change everything.
it is when you change everything. Now, let me skip ahead because I don't know if there's a copyright issue on some of this, so I want to be very careful about it. So let me just open this up very quickly. Here we go. And he says, CBDC, central bank digital currency. That's the conversation. And again, you know, this is not something, they don't usually talk about digital assets and CBDCs. This is crossing and hitting an intersection with the political, geopolitical landscape. Take a listen.
Central bank digital currency. Yes, the FedCoin is here.
FedCoin, remember
now,
that.
They rolled it out on Wednesday. That was the only day they could do it, you know, because they've been denying that any of this stuff was happening, but they could only get it when no one was paying attention. So they rolled it out, and it's in its beta test now. This is a Federal Reserve digital currency.
Okay.
Yeah. So one starts as a digital. The other one has to be transformed digitally. So they've cut that transforming part out. And that's the part where it gets really sketchy. I think maybe we should start having the conversation, because this is coming. Maybe we should start having the conversation of, gosh, this looks like the mark of the beast. Let me tell you about the plan to retire the U.S. dollar. Right now, there is a race going on for digital currency. It's a 3-horse race, and Bitcoin is not in it. It's the U.S., China, or the IMF, the World Bank. We are looking for what is going to be the world reserve currency, what is going to replace the U.S. dollar. Russia and others are pushing out digital currency, et cetera, but they're a tiny portion of the global currency power, and they're really not relevant, in my opinion. The U.S. Federal Reserve is behind China on the actual digital currency implementation. China already has the digital renminbi. Renminbi is the people's money in Mandarin. However, even though they've already pushed this out and they're already using it, the U.S. is way ahead when it comes to potential adoption. 70% of international financial transactions right now are settled in U.S. dollars. This is what gives our dollar any kind of value now, whereas only 1.5% of the global transactions are settled in Chinese money. And so the plan is to issue a digital U.S. dollar and then automatically convert U.S. dollars from the old U.S. dollars to digital U.S. dollars, DUSDs. Okay, the banks would issue the DUSD at some ratio that the Fed would set. Now, here's why this is so important for you to be ahead of the curve on.
Remember what he just said. We're going to talk about that in a second. Setting it. Let me just give that last little part. You need to hear that.
Now are settled in U.S. dollars. This is what gives our dollar any kind of value now, whereas only 1.5% of the global transactions are settled in Chinese money. And so the plan is to issue a digital U.S. dollar and then automatically convert U.S. dollars from the old U.S. dollars to digital U.S. dollars, DUSDs. Okay, the banks would issue the DUSD at some ratio that the Fed would set. Now,
at some ratio that the Fed would set. Remember that.
Here's why this is so important for you to be ahead of the curve on. The money in your bank account will suddenly become US or DUSDs overnight. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be dollar for dollar. In fact, the Fed is going to be deciding how much loss everybody takes. The Fed will also offer US dollar cash holders, physical cash, but not in the banks, to cash in old USDs for new DUSDs for some time period, 6 months or a year.
Now, I have been discussing that, and Big Skinny and I have discussed that for at least 2 to 3 years. And now we're hearing that conversation become much more broad and much more understood. I tell you, you know, I don't look, I'm not an expert, but everything I've looked at when it comes to a currency reset, involves something very similar to what you heard him just say right there. Now, with that being said, I want to remind you of this. Remember FedCoin, R3 report, David Andafaldo from the Federal Reserve, who did the report for R3, remarked about how, it was Ripple that set the precedent for 100% pre-allocation, and about how you could introduce, as an example, a $200 bill would be set to a 2-to-1 peg ratio or whatever you need it to be. Isn't this what we just heard said to us? The conversation's getting even more real. Listen to Fox Business News. They got it twisted. They're talking about Bitcoin. God bless this guy. He doesn't know. But the transaction fees will take you out. The lack of settlement, the length of settlement time, we all know the drill. But listen to what's said here.
You think Bitcoin could take off if the Fed favors a stable coin?
Yes.
That's one of your surprises?
Yeah, no one's expecting this. Everyone's looking at Bitcoin and saying it's down at 17 on its way to 9,000 or 8,000 or whatever it is. Hang on a minute. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, which is one of the 12 regional banks that make up the Fed, actually came out with a report in November whereby it said we actually see a need for something called for lack of a better word, a FedCoin, a stable coin linked to the dollar that would be backed by the central bank. And here's why. It would speed and enable the transfer of money between banks. We're not talking you and me saying, hey, give me $20 for, drinks last night. No, we're talking about, as an example, Mitsubishi Bank in Tokyo wants to get $100 million worth of yen into its New York branch. It needs $100 million of yen in Tokyo and $100 million of dollars in New York. You create a stable coin, it attaches the money, and simultaneously it's transferred. You don't need to have money in two places. You free up the capital.
And that would...
And it makes it more efficient.
So a Fed stable coin
Yes.
would make Bitcoin take off.
Yes, because what you're effectively doing is legitimizing the entire system. We all focus on the price of Bitcoin, and that's fair because that's the bright, shiny thing. But it's what...
All right, I'll stop it right there. The guy's so close, can't see the forest for the trees, right? I can only think of this. You've missed the plot, my friend. They're not going to pick an anti-government, anti-establishment network token cryptocurrency to back the US dollar and become the new Fed coin. Oh my goodness. However, the conversation continues because Bitcoin's not on the Federal Reserve's US Faster Payments Council, are they? Who would you call? Ghostbusters? No. You got to have a company behind the tech, and it's Ripple, baby, right? And when we look at it, I think this right here sums up where we're going, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Mark Phillips, who is an OG in this space. When the SEC versus Ripple case is over, the resulting regulatory clarity will unleash both the Jevons paradox and the Kazum-Brooks postulate, resulting in increasingly ubiquitous XRP use and overall economic growth, both for the fintech sector and the global economy. Boom. That's what's coming, ladies and gentlemen, as far as I'm concerned. Quickly, the Jevons paradox is really important because we're talking about the standardization of payments. Just like we saw the standardization in the shipping industry, just like we saw the standardization in the Industrial Revolution with the coal burning and all of this. They set out to make something more efficient because it cost too much to burn the coal and the energy that they needed to run and make steel. They said, man, if we could just make this thing cost less, it would be better. But what they found out is once they figured out how to make it cost less and run more efficiently, they could run the plants 24 hours a day because they made it so efficient. And then the demand was increased like we've never seen. And that's how we got the Industrial Revolution. The standardization of the shipping industry, same thing. Everything was just haywire when it came to shipping goods across the planet. But when they had the same ships built, the same container sizes, the same port layout, the same cranes, the same trucks to carry the containers, that standardization created an efficiency that caused a global boom in the trade industry. The same thing is about to happen in the payments world, ladies and gentlemen. And I believe Ripple, XRP, and the XRP ledger is smack dab in the middle of it. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. If you haven't checked it out, it's I Trust Capital. The only thing better than investing in crypto, gold, and silver is investing in tax-free crypto, gold, and silver IRAs, baby. They got staking too. Click the link in the sponsor underneath the video and check them out. I'll catch all of you on the next one.